the guy's brain won't love it in 4-ounce gloves for the next fucking 10 years of his
Tickets
life.
he sold, isn't it?
Fucking tinnitus and fucking head TBI and
There you go. That's a good way to start. We're
shit.
having a rant before we've started, guys. But boom, we're back. Squeeze the neck, and we're back at Raw Performance. I think we are
Raw
today.
Performance
right?
Gym,
Been here
yeah,
before.
Hastings.
That's it, Hastings. Shout out to Stephen Hill, the Hillbilly Hammer. I wanted to call you. I always reference your nickname, mate, when it comes. With my new mate, Will Toal, is it?
Yeah.
Nice one, mate. I appreciate you for doing this.
No problem, mate.
So we got put in touch with former guest Freddie Sykes. So shout out, Freddie. Hope you're well,
big
mate.
up,
I'll see
Freddie.
you in the week. But tell us, mate, who are you? I was going to say, where are we? I know where we are, but tell us what you do, mate, because you're not a fighter yourself.
No, I used to be. I had some MMA experience back in the day. I had quite a few MMA bouts back from 2009 to like 2014, but a couple of nasty knee injuries put pay to that. Knee injuries actually from Jiu Jitsu, not actually from MMA. So training Jiu Jitsu in the gi, ruptured my MCL at the British up in Birmingham. And then from that point, like it's just never the same. And then I had a couple of other meniscus tears. So yeah, I've got background, a little bit of boxing, did some MMA back in the day, but my thing now is I train combat athletes for strength and conditioning.
Brilliant. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean like you're not a fighter.
Yeah, no.
Like you just lift the weight, sweetheart. I didn't mean it like that, but like we got put in touch, as I say, through like for strength and conditioning, right?
That's right. Yeah.
But like back in the day, where are you from originally?
Well, I'm originally from Hastings. Grew up down here. Spent most of my early life down here, and then sort of when I got into my mid-20s, I went and lived over in the United States for a little while, for a while to coaching soccer out there.
Excuse me, coaching what?
Yeah,
It's football, mate. This is England. Hey, yo, this is England.
Soccer, like yeah. So when you say you was in America coaching football, they're like they look at the size
American,
of American football. I'm like, no,
right.
soccer. So anyway, I was coaching football out there. Came back from there, and that's when I did my a little bit of a background in football, played at a decent level when I was younger. Went and did my coaching badges, did my UEFA A licence, and that's when I went out to America and was out there for a while.
Whereabouts?
New Jersey.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, a place called Montclair, beautiful place in New Jersey called Montclair, really, really nice place. Not too far outside New York, so I got in there a little bit. Came back from there sort of 2009. I think I was 28 at the time. Not a lot going on in the UK. Global recession hit in 2008, right, so there weren't a lot of stuff going on. I'd done quite a lot of sort of one-to-one S&C type training with players out in the US, because obviously it's big out there. Like, it's a middle-class sport out there, so the people that are playing out there, their parents have got a little bit of money, so they invest in their kids, like fitness, strength conditioning. They do all that. They do the whole lot.
Is it quite a trendy thing out there?
Yeah, it's very trendy. At the time, the women's US national team were absolutely flying. They were world champions.
I was going to say, because I've been in Colorado training stuff, not soccer, obviously I was training martial arts, but they, like the women you speak to that play soccer, football, but you know what I'm saying. Soccer for those listening, they seem very high on it. Like they like to tell you, I played at this college, this one, like so really enthusiastic about it.
The structure they've got in the US for soccer is similar to the way they have basketball and NBA. They play in the colleges, then they get drafted into universities, they get offers from universities. The company that I was working for was a private coaching company run by a guy originally from Colchester. And he moved over to America, met his wife, married, had kids, set up this coaching academy. And they're like a private company, and the parents basically pay this guy to train their kids to the level so they get into like a D1 college for football.
Whoa, okay.
So it's like the same with like all of the other sports that you've got. You've got different divisions in the NCAA for these sports, and they would basically pay this guy to get their kids to the level. He knew what was expected, like what was required to get into a D1 college. And then all of the sort of like the older kids that we had in there, they were getting offers from all over the country to go and play soccer for these universities. So that's what we used to do. And I was actually staff development, so where I had my UEFA A licence, there was a lot of people, there was not many people around, especially in the States, that were doing that. So I used to write development programs, the coaching programs for the coaches. Oh, okay. So I used to coach the coaches and they used to go and coach the kids. So I had a good time out there. But like I say, came back 2009, global recession had hit, weren't a lot going on in the football terms. I'd done a bit of S&C, so I thought, you know what, I'll take my PT qualification, start moving into sort of like commercial fitness.
Just gyms and stuff like that.
Yeah, just
everyday
training.
man.
Yeah, gym-based personal training. So I did my PT qualification, started working straight into a David Lloyd. I was living in Dartford at the time in Kent, so I worked up in David Lloyd Dartford. I was up in there for a little while. That kind of snowballed into sort of management roles, and then I was manager for the second biggest club in the UK. It was a Nuffield Health down at Cannon Street. It was their flagship site. So
it's still there, right?
Still there, mate. Yeah, still there.
Yeah.
I was there for 8 years, so I managed that for 8 years. Managed a massive team of personal trainers, obviously personal training myself, and I'll be teaching classes. Then I moved on to a company called Third Space, which are a real top-end luxury brand in London.
Have really expanded recently as well.
Really expanded recently, yeah. So I started working for them, and I opened their first club. So the other clubs that they'd had were acquisitions from other businesses.
Okay.
And the City Club that I opened, that I ran, was the first club they built from scratch.
Right,
so
okay.
it's quite,
where was this one? Which one?
This was by Fenchurch Street Station, Mark Lane, Central London. Just up the road from where I was previously. So I went into there, was fitness manager, elite personal trainer, part of the education, doing practical assessments for new trainers coming in, bits and pieces like that. And it's when I was working for those guys that I really started moving more into specialism of strength and conditioning. I went and did some qualifications. I did Mike Boyle's strength and conditioning qualification. I went over to Ireland and did a few days over there with the guys at Mike Boyle's. Dan McGinley, shout out to Dan McGinley over in Boston. Those guys, I'll be going to see those guys. We'll talk about. I'll be going to New York in July with Ellie.
And you're talking about bringing me with you as like a...
Absolutely, you're coming in my suitcase, mate. Yeah. I've got a big suitcase allowance, so I'll throw you in there. But so I started to specialise in strength and conditioning more when I got to Third Space because the sort of level of personal trainers that they were recruiting at the time was sort of high level, and I wanted to specialise in strength and conditioning because it's something I'd already been interested in. And we had one of the guys that I brought with me, I'd recruited a couple of guys when I was working at Nuffield, and I recruited them straight at university. So I worked with them at Nuffield, and then when I went over to Third Space, part of the deal of me going to Third Space, I need to bring these guys with me.
That's cool, isn't it? That's cool.
So a couple of guys, Aidan, Isaac George and Lloyd Anthony, came over with me. They've been working with me a long time. I trusted them. We were good, close friends. So I sort of said, listen, if it's a package deal, if I come over to Third Space, these guys come with me. So we all ended up going over. And Aidan actually got a client called Courtney, and he was just setting up a management company. He was involved with a guy called Dummy, and he owned Disturb in London record label.
Oh, okay.
And so they decided to set up a sports branch, and Courtney was in with Dummy, setting up this management sports branch, and they took on a boxer, a heavyweight, Jamie TKV. And they'd sort of were looking, he was still amateur at the time, he hadn't turned over, but obviously they saw the potential in him, and Courtney was actually doing PT with Aidan. So Courtney said to Aidan, look, why don't you come and train I've got this boxer, I've just signed him, we're looking to get him into strength and conditioning, why don't you train him?
And this is what sort of timeline we're talking?
This was 2000 and just after COVID, so
so fairly recently. Okay.
Yeah, it's 4 years ago.
Yeah,
4 years ago.
So strength and conditioning is like a big buzz, isn't it? Everyone and their mum's got a strength and conditioning.
Yeah. So about 4 years ago, he sort of said to Aidan, why don't you come and train? And Aidan was like, look, my manager's got experience in combat sports. He's done MMA, Jiu Jitsu, boxing. He's trained fighters before. Like, why don't we do it together? So me and Aidan took on Jamie. I had no intention of specialising in combat sports, even though it was a sort of passion of mine. So he took on Jamie, started working with him. He'd finished his amateur career. He turned over, started his pro journey, pro debut, and I've been there in his corner for all of his 10 pro fights that he's had so far. Obviously fought for a British title against David Adelaide recently, controversial end to that. So we were kind of looking at the rematch for that. But that's how it started. And then, as with most things, it kind of just snowballs. People were seeing the results that we were getting with Jamie. So other people wanted to come on board. And it just sort of snowballed from there. No,
because when you're the guy, people do want to use you, don't they? Strength and conditioning, especially boxing. MMA's always been quite open-minded to it, isn't it? If you go back, like when I was amateur boxing, like if you ever lifted a weight in your life, you was like a fucking idiot.
You're a pariah.
You was like, what are you doing that for? You're going to look like Bruno, and you're going to be stiff.
Yeah. So, fortunately, the sort of coaches that I work with are, I would say, like a modern day boxing coaches. So Ben Davison, Barry Smith, Shane McGuigan, are the guys that I'm working with, and they've got a much more modern day approach to boxing and the science of boxing. You know, pretty much I think all of Ben Davison and Barry Smith's guys have got strength and conditioning coaches. All of Shane McGuigan's fighters have got strength and conditioning coaches. So it's very much part of the game.
Yeah. He was very forward thinking, Shane, as well, wasn't he? He used to do it himself, I think, didn't
Absolutely, yeah. So he did. So actually, Shane did strength and conditioning qualifications himself, and he delivered a lot of strength and conditioning in the early days to his boxers. But obviously, as he's developed into, you know, like a world-class coach with multiple world champions in his stable, his time is obviously restricted. So now he focuses on the boxing training. All of his guys got strength and conditioning coaches. But obviously, with Shane, where I work with Ellie, me and Shane work quite closely.
Oh, do you?
We communicate. Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
He's very hands-on with that side of it. Right. We speak on the phone, text messages, you know, send him the programs and bits and pieces like that.
That's really cool.
So yeah, we work quite closely together with stuff like that.
That's cool, because I knew Shane a bit back in the day. I don't know him well, but he used the old McGuigan's gym in Battersea. I used to go in there a little bit, and he two gyms actually. He had one in Wandsworth Town. I was in there a little bit, and he's very sort of like. I hesitate to use the word open-minded, not in because I think open-minded gets a bit polluted, doesn't it? I think nowadays, if you say someone's open-minded, some people think you're saying they're a bit sort of wishy-washy. I don't mean that, but he's very kind of new agey, and he'd like take things on, and he would have his like fighters at the time. He had Carl Frampton quite heavy. Not heavy in terms of weight, but like he was obviously heavily involved with him, and he had him lifting weights. He had him doing all kinds of like trendy stuff that people looked at before in boxing anyway. What the fuck are you doing?
What are you doing?
Do you know what I mean? So he's always been like, but he was a coach from like 25, I think.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
Stopped boxing young.
So he started coaching really early, had a decent amateur career, but then started into the coaching quite young. So he's very forward thinking. He's a modern day coach, boxing coach, where you know he understands that you know the boxing coach coaches the boxing, the skills coach. Then they've got S&C coaches, got nutritionists. You know they've got specialists in each area. So you know at the end of the day, he wants his fights to be the best they possibly can be. Right. If that means they get the best expert from each field, then that's what he'll do. So
well, I'll tell you what I heard him recently on maybe a year ago on an interview, and if I'm butchering it, Shane, in this finds you, correct me, mate. But it was he was talking about like Olympic lifting for fighters, and how like it makes you a great athlete and stuff. But he doesn't have his fighters doing it anymore because like their wrists are stiff from punching and all this kind. Which to me, like hearing that is like it's brilliant, isn't it? You know what I mean?
Absolutely,
because
mate.
It's staying in your lane, like to touch on what you're saying, but
Absolutely.
also it's like, hey, they got to perform in there, haven't they? Do you know what I mean?
Definitely.
Like it's easy to, and I've had this chat on this. So I'm sorry to be a broken record, but like some strength and conditioning coaches train people to get a better bench press, better squat. They show them a form and go, look, you're better. Their performance ain't better. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, we very much tailor our training around the demands of the sport. For obviously most of the guys I work with are boxers, so we tailor the training around the demands of the sport. We always prioritise their boxing. We always prioritise their skills training. If they come to me and they've got a heavy week of sparring, or they're halfway through a heavy week of sparring, and we've got X, Y, and Z programmed. You know, we're deep into the camp. We've got some high intensity sort of energy system development work, and they've got 10 rounds of sparring tomorrow. Like we scale that session down.
You do,
Oh, 100%. 100%. A lot of the times during camp, guys will come in tired. They've had heavy sparring sessions. They've got a lot of, training load. We adapt the sessions so that the priority during camp is performance in sparring.
The priority, it's got to be, innit? It has to be.
The priority for the boxers during camp is how they perform in sparring. Now, we're not going to scale every session so they perform in sparring, but when we get to the peak week, sort of 4 to 5 weeks out from fight night, that's our peak period of training.
Is that right? That's interesting. Quite far away from the fights.
So we'll have like a 3-week peak period, and then they'll usually do a 2-week taper. So sort of 5 weeks out from fight night, that's when our peak phase starts. That's when the training is going to be heaviest, most explosive. The energy system work's going to be most intense, but it's also the time when their sparring ramps up considerably. So some of them will do 2 or 3 sparring sessions a week during those peak phases. So you're spinning plates, like we're walking tightrope. So when they feel good, we'll go hard. They'll do their sparring. We'll stick to the program in terms of all of our contrast training, energy system development. But if they come in and they're fried from doing 10 rounds of sparring and they've got another 10 rounds tomorrow, like we won't go full clip on the S&C.
Suck it up and get on with it type thing. Them days are gone.
No, them days are gone, mate. And actually, if Ellie's watching this, she'll be laughing to herself right now. I say to the guys, more isn't always more. Sometimes less is more.
Right.
Sometimes doing less will actually set you up. Fully recover, be fresh for sparring, fully recover, be fresh for your S&C sessions. A lot of the stuff they do in between can sometimes be a hindrance to their performance.
I was going to say, because a lot of people I speak to, not a lot of people, sorry, some people I speak to, since I've been doing this, that they say sort of like during training camp, what they'd call a camp, they actually train less than they do out of camp. They obviously train a lot more intensely, but in terms of hours and time, because they're not trying to learn, right?
They're preparing for a fight. So all of the prep work in between camps, all of the skills work in between camps, that's when they're making improvements. You know, during camp, there should be a focus around fitness, but there should be a focus around game planning as well. Like if you're absolutely fucked and you're trying to go over some real technical game planning stuff, like the guys that I work with, they watch video, they study their opponent, they look for weaknesses, they look for opportunities, they look for patterns in the way that they box and the way that they fight. They study them, then they go onto the pad to drill opportunities. If he does this, boom, this is what we do. If you're absolutely frazzled from back to back, 10, 12 rounds of sparring, runs, sprints, S&C, heavy lifting, you can't process that information.
No.
So camp's about preparing specifically that for that opponent, looking for opportunities to exploit against that opponent, drilling it on the pads, looking for it in sparring, and then us in S&C trying to make sure they're as strong and powerful as possible, making sure they're as fit as possible, but not at the detriment of their skills training, not at the detriment of the quality of their sparring, because that's where they get the confidence. They will get confidence from lifting heavy, being explosive in the gym, PBs, high intensity training that we work on. They will get confidence from that, but they'll never get more confidence than from a good fucking 10-round spar where they light someone up.
That's it, yeah.
That's
and still feel good at the end, right? And they're buzzing, they got more rounds in the tank.
So we always prioritise their skills training, absolutely. Nothing ever gets in the way of their skills training. And then I think that's probably the reason why I've been so successful and I work with the level of guys that I work with, because high-level coaches understand that I understand what's more important in their week of training, and that's their skills training.
And also nowadays, fighters are a bit more sort of happy, I think, to put faith in it, right? Where they can say, "You're my strength and conditioning coach, take care of it." Because back in the day, and again, not that I'm saying like I'm a dinosaur, but like when I was training like amateur boxing specifically, and some guys were playing around with strength and conditioning coaching, they'd argue with a strength and conditioning coach to the point of like, "I think we should do it," and it's like, bro, why are you even bothering? Like, do it yourself. Or
my guys are the opposite. They'll turn up and go, "What's today? What we got today, coach?" And if I went, "Right, you're going to run into that brick wall 5 times," they'll be like, 5 times? 6? What would you want? Like, I'll be like, yeah, 5 times. Off you go. Boom. They'll be straight in there. Like they one thing I will say is they absolutely trust me as a coach, my system, my processes, because they see results. They get to fight night. They're not injured. They feel good. They're fresh. They trust the process because they've lived it, they've experienced it, they see the results of it. So.
And it's a hassle and all, isn't it? Like in terms of I was a personal trainer too, and like when you train someone else, it's relatively easy because you follow what you know what you want them to do, and that's it. Well, but when I've trained myself for things, I'm second guessing myself. Maybe it's me, but do you know what I mean? I'm second guessing myself. It's like if I go, just tell me what to do. It makes a lot of things easier.
Oh, mate, like they the guys that I work with, they're very much. They're 100% dedicated to the training. They're really consistent. They turn up every week. They very rarely miss a session. But like where they trust the process, they'll do exactly that. They'll turn up. What we got today, coach? Right, we've got this, and this. Right, boom.
Nice.
First thing I say to him, how you feeling? How's your week been? What have you done? What have you got left to do the rest of this week? Oh, I feel a bit low. I've got this and this. Okay, right, good. What we're going to do today is this was in the program. We're going to do this and this, but we're going to scale this back a little bit because we don't need to do that because you've got this covered. So
we're opening a can of worms there. We say, how do you feel, right? Because we
fighters.
Like, my missus don't love me and the neighbour. Yeah,
I'm Dr. Phil, mate.
Yeah, right. Agony aunt over there, yeah.
I'm Dr. Phil during the session. But it's great, mate. Like like I say, it shows the level of trust that my guys have got in me. They're a pleasure to work with, mate. They're a real pleasure.
Yeah, and do you train people year round typically? Are you a
year
year round guy?
Oh, mate, 100%.
You're one of them that's
my guys that train, They don't take time off in between camps.
That's a game changer,
They don't take time off in between camps. My guys that have had the most success, whether they're obviously we periodise the training, so it's different between camps and in camp and peak weeks, and we periodise it, really structure it specifically. Like, it's quite technical and quite scientific how we structure it. But they don't take time off. They're always in. Right. They're always doing something. It's different.
That's how you become a champion at the end of the day, isn't it? You know what I mean? Like, if you're like the old school, like when they disappear out of the gym for 2 months, them days are gone.
Them days are gone, mate. If that's how you're going to be, you're not going to be successful at the top level.
Right.
You might be able to. You might get to, like a Southern Area English title. You're probably not going to win the British title these days with that type of mentality. You're certainly not going to get to European and world level.
You're just not going to be as good as you could be, are you? Is the long and short of it.
Well, because taking time off in between camps, like I say to my guys, if you take time off in between camps, you let your weight go up.
Right.
Camp becomes about getting fit and making weight, not about being the best you. And like I said, my guys, both, the coaches that I work with are very technical. They're very savvy. You've got Lee Wiley at Ben Davis Performance Centre doing video breakdowns. I've seen and been through Lee Wiley's breakdowns with my fighters. I'll sit there and watch them with them. I was literally watching some stuff with Alois Jr. yesterday. We were going through some bits and pieces about how to deal with different styles and different, southpaws and bits and pieces like that. The information they put together is so technical, and when the boxers understand it and drill it and believe in it, that's what you see. It's like I say, Alois Jr. is the perfect example. Against David Jameson in Glasgow a few weeks ago, we'd been going through the game plan footage, and even the night before in the hotel, come into my hotel room, and we were going through some bits and pieces. Obviously, he'd been through it with Ben and Lee 1,000 times. So we was going through it and looking at it, and it's good because it lets me understand what they're trying to achieve out of the fight, and all of the things that were on the video, the breakdown video, the tendencies of David Jameson, Alois exploited every single one. And what he actually stopped him with was one of the things that Lee Wiley identified as an opportunity, and he actually stopped him with exactly what was on the video, Yeah. So if you're worried about, if you're struggling and you're in a massive calorie deficit because you've let your weight balloon, you've not been training, so you're not fit, every session is a grind. You can't be fresh-minded and aware of what's going on. Camp just becomes about getting fit and making weight. You don't ever get better.
Yeah.
When you keep your weight down, you stay fit, you stay to a baseline level of fitness. When camp starts, it's like, right, video, what we're doing, technical stuff, and we've got a good base of platform to move on to. It just makes it so much better. Then they actually get better between camps and camp to camp, rather than just being fit and making weight and staying at the same level.
Well, that is when you're getting better as well between camps, isn't it? As a general fighter, like if I'm getting ready for you in 6 weeks, I'm preparing for you, aren't I? Do you know what I mean?
It's hard to learn under high stress situations.
I've just got to figure out how to beat you.
Absolutely. It's hard to learn under high stress situations when you are sparring world class guys in sparring every week, and you're not fit and you're not on weight, and you're going through those spars surviving. You can't learn anything.
If anything, I think you're getting worse. I've had this chat with people before as well.
You do get worse, mate.
Because you get good at being the guy who survives, don't you? You become sort of like almost trained like a journeyman in a way, innit? Do you know what I mean? Of getting through rounds and all, fucking hell, I survived that one.
So, the guys that, the level that most of my fighters are at now, like the guys that they're sparring are world-class fighters. And you can't have bad days in there.
No. Especially in a sport like boxing.
You can't go into Ben Davison's gym and have a bad day sparring.
No.
You can't go into Shane McGuigan's gym and have a bad day sparring. Because
they spar hard as well, I think, in gyms, don't they?
Yeah, they do spar hard. They do a lot of technical sparring. They don't just spar hard. Yeah. They do a lot of technical sparring, a lot of contact drilling, a lot of technical drilling on the pads. But when it's time to go, they let it go. Because
that's an interesting thing as well. Again, going back to sort of the trendy hipster vibe that people have at times. A few years ago, especially, it seemed to be like people was giving it the old, I don't think you need to spar hard and all that. To me, biggest load of nonsense, right? Yeah, no. Time and a place. I'm not saying every day punch fuck out of each other.
The worst thing you can do is go into the ring and on fight night experience something you haven't experienced in sparring, because that's going to take your mind away from what you're trying to do. If you have been sparring tippy-tappy for your whole camp and then someone first minute clumps you up, you don't know what's going on, like that's going to set you back. you need to have experienced everything that you're going to experience in a fight in sparring. And so there is that. Look, should every sparring session be full clip? No, definitely not. But there's absolutely a time and a place. You know, they take all the precautions, they use the bigger gloves, head guards, all of that stuff, so they can go full clip in the sparring and it still be safe.
Yep.
But no, absolutely. If you want to be world level, if you want to be a world champion, you have to spar hard.
Yep.
It's not just the contact, it's the feeling. When you throw shots heavy, it does something different to your gas tank. Drains your gas tank. Taking heavy shots drains your gas tank. Getting hit heavy to the body drains your gas tank. So unless you've experienced all that in sparring, you've conditioned yourself to doing that. If you go into a fight night with smaller gloves, like you're going to feel it.
I see. And a weapon as well, because like again,
absolutely.
If you ever put a pro boxing glove on your hand, which I know you have,
that
ain't there to protect your face. That's to protect my hand.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? And it's not doing a lot of protecting your hands.
It's a
either.
weapon, mate.
Yeah,
They're
it's
fucking hard. Yeah, they're like hitting someone with a brick, man. You hit someone harder with the glove than without it.
Absolutely, especially in MMA gloves, mate. 4 ounces.
Yeah.
You know, I got my face smashed to pieces once. I fought for an ICO British title in Stevenage in 2011, and I got my eye socket broke in 2 places, my cheekbone shattered, my nose broken, my right foot broken, 2 toes, 2 tarsals in my right foot. I had to have I've got 2 metal plates, 8 screws in there.
Jesus Christ, that was a fun after party, wasn't it?
Oh, mate, yeah, wasn't it just? The after party was stopping on the M25, being sick, and then going straight to A&E. That was the after party, mate, yeah. It was horrific. But, it's... there absolutely is a place for hard sparring. I don't think you should be doing it every spar, and they don't. Top level guys don't. But yeah, when it's time to go, they go.
It's interesting to say that, because I've spoken to people that have done it a lot. I've heard Chris Eubank speak, and I've spoke to Andy Flute, who was a sparring partner of his, and they seem to say, look, Eubank, when he was in his prime, used to spar 6 days a week, every day hard, and he'd just have it constant. And then I've spoke to Nigel Benn as well, who said like he'd spar, and don't quote me on this, it might be a bit off, but it's something like he'd only spar for like 6 weeks before the fight, like once or twice a week, just to get his range and his timing, which is crazy, because if you watch the way Nigel Benn fights, you'd think he'd be having a tear every day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But like I think, when you've got teams of guys, like in an ideal world, if you do an 8-week training camp, then you'd just be sparring for that 8 weeks.
Right.
And the same way the intensity of your S&C ramps up to a peak phase, your sparring should do the same. So if they're doing a 10 or a 12 round fight, every spar ain't going to be 12 rounds.
No way.
They're going to, first couple of weeks, they're going to do 6s and 8s. Then they'll ease into 10s, and then they'll have a couple of really intense sparring weeks, so they'll spar 2 or 3 times a week. And then they'll, as they get closer to final, a couple of weeks out, they'll go back down to 8s and 6s. Really, so it'll kind of, a peak like all the rest of the training should in terms of intensity and volume. But, you've got other people, when you're outside of your training camp, you've got other people, your teammates that are in camp.
Right.
So, there will be times when the guys are, 3 months out from fights or haven't even got a date, and they're going in there sparring 6, 8, 10 rounds with people that are a couple of weeks out from fights, because that's what teammates do. And when you've got a team, like for example at Ben Davison's, you've got my heavyweight Jamie TKV's up there, Moses Atalma, Anthony Joshua, Fabio Wardley, Alois Jr.
Ain't no easy days.
That's what I'm saying. You can't have a bad day up there.
No.
So you've got all those 5 guys in the mixer. Even if those guys, Jamie's a great example. Even if he's out of camp and he's not got a date, he'll still be in, getting rounds in with Fabio, getting rounds in with Alois, helping them prepare for their fights, and vice versa. When Jamie's preparing, Fabio will be in there sparring with him, Alois will be in there sparring with him. So it's the guys, they spar a lot. It's not always full clip, like I said, but in an ideal world, they'd just spar for their 8-week camp, and the intensity would ramp up and then drop off. But because you've got teammates and you've got people preparing for fights, they all do their bit. They are a team up there. So if they've got people preparing, they don't just think, oh, well, I ain't got a fight, so I'm out of here. They'll be in there sparring with those guys.
That's interesting. But do they spar different in terms? We don't have to be specific on people, but sometimes, me and you sparring, for example, when I've got a fight, you're sparring for me, and vice versa, right? If you've got a fight, so do they nick rounds off? Is what I'm saying, and spar for the other person, or is it always a tear up?
No. They'll do like I say, they'll do some technical sparring where they'll spar specific conditions, and they'll look for certain things. Sometimes they'll adapt their style to try and meet him, but not typically. Typically they'll do their the top level guys will get sparring in that replicates or is similar to the guy that they're going to be sparring. But all sparring should be like that. You're going to need rounds where you're just going to war. You're going to need rounds where you've got a pressure fighter. You're going to need rounds where you've got someone sitting off trying to counterpunch, so that you're ready for all the things that might occur. Like, not every fighter comes out every fight exactly the same. No. So sometimes they change their strategy and they change their game plan. So you've got to be ready for different stuff. So they will get opponents in that are similar to the guy that they're sparring, but they will then do other rounds with other guys just for fitness and for sharpness. And yeah, if you've got someone when you get in there, you're going to war, you've got to be ready. So
it's time.
Yeah,
It's time.
Yeah, exactly.
But like for you touched on it. You said 8 weeks is sort of a number. Like, is 8 weeks sort of a sweet spot you find for training camp?
I find from a strength and conditioning perspective, 8 weeks generally tends to be, if you've got the baseline level of strength and cardiovascular fitness.
If you're already fit,
if you're already there, if you're already at a certain level, 8 weeks is perfect. We divide our training into 3-week blocks, so we'll do 2 3-week blocks. We'll do a 3-week block, then we'll do a 3-week peak, and then we'll do a 2-week taper. And in that taper, we'll deload it. We'll use isometrics to try and mimic the heavy lifting. We'll have much more of a speed and power focus. The energy system will be real short, high intensity bursts with longer rest periods. And then obviously they've got to make weight apart from a heavyweight. So they'll have a week to 10 days of taper sessions where the length is shorter, the intensity is down, and then I'll have sort of like 5 days to start making weight. So
do you take care of that as well? Is that your department?
No, like usually most of my guys have got nutritionists.
Different world now.
Yeah. Most of the guys got nutritionists, and shout out to Paul Pro Nutrition Clinic. He does a lot of the guys that we work with. He takes care of making weight. I do it with some guys. But usually a nutritionist takes care of that, because it's a very technical process now. They talk about sweat rates and bits and pieces like that. Yeah.
It's very was technical. A big trendy word a few years ago.
Yeah. So there's all sorts going on now. So like the experts at it, Paul, they'll take care of the weight cuts usually. But I have done some weight cuts with guys before. So
it's interesting. Back in the day, you'd ask Steve in the corner because he had a 6-pack. You go, Steve, how do I get these last few pounds? That was the old school way.
Oh man, a sweatsuit in the sauna. That was me, mate.
Bin bags, wasn't it? Yeah, you used to run in bin bags.
It's horrific, mate. It's horrific. But yeah, it's moved on a little bit since then. So
thank God.
They use the hot water baths now and bits and pieces like that. And it's much more doled in, so they're only doing as much as they need to do, and it's they calculated before they do the weight cuts.
Right, so. Well, that goes with training and everything, I think. The culture shift has gone from
much more scientific.
Right, it used to just be harder, do more.
Do more, more is more. I mean?
That's I turn up to class, and no names, but I'd turn up to session sometimes, and session would start at, say, 6 o'clock. They'd want you there at 5:30 to do a run first. Yeah. Then you train for 2 hours. Then you do a run after. Then you come back and do a million push-ups.
Yeah.
And you look back and you go, we're training at the time for a fucking 3-round, 3-minute fight. What the fuck are we doing? You know?
Yeah, exactly. What the fuck are you doing? And a lot of the times that overtrained state is actually detrimental.
I find it worse than undertraining.
Well, my guys will be laughing now.
Really, yeah.
Overtrained is worse than undertrained.
I feel that way.
Overtrained, you're mentally fatigued. Undertrained, you're not. Undertrained, you might not be physically prepared, but you're not mentally fatigued, mentally stressed out and tired. You are mentally fresher, so you can grind it.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the guys we work with, their skill levels are so high, they can manage their energy, they can manage the opponent in front of them for a certain number of rounds. They can work in bursts. The rest of the time they can move and manage and box and jab and fake and buy some time.
Yeah.
When you're overtrained, mentally you're done.
And also,
that's the biggest difference.
It is. And also there's an element of not caring too, right? There's times where I've been flat in sparring, for example, and I can see you're going to jab my head and it's almost like,
just do
whatever.
it.
I can't be asked. You know what I mean? And it's like you can't do that, can you? That's no good to get through.
That's why I try and drill into my guys all the train. Overtrained is worse than undertrained.
Good. We're in agreement.
You think you're doing better by doing more, but you're actually not. It's actually going to be detrimental to your performance in the long run.
Yeah.
So I work with that. That's a battle. That's a battle.
Is it?
The mentality of the top level guys.
They ain't lazy, are they?
They ain't lazy. They're far from it, mate.
Yeah.
They're far from it.
They're the opposite, aren't they?
They want to be working constantly, and they think if they're not doing every single thing that they can do, that they're cheating themselves. But it's just not the case.
Yeah.
But that's why you've got experts around you, and that's how you build trust, because you show them that there's a different way to do it. they do it because they trust you and they see the benefits of doing that. So, you know, it can be a battle sometimes because the mentality of the elite level combat sports athlete is just give everything.
But that's the way you want it rather than not showing up, right?
Yeah.
You're supposed to be meeting fucking like 10, like where are you?
Yeah, you'd rather have that than that, but somewhere in the middle is perfect. So you don't have to end every session on your back sweating and blowing out your arse. There's a time and a place for just doing some bits and pieces and just taking the intensity down sometimes. Resting is the big one.
Taking
time off, like taking a day off. Yeah, like trying to, I'll do a steady. No.
Because that never works.
I'll just do some. Exactly. Because it never is a steady.
2 rounds in, it's like I feel good now.
A minute in, like, oh, that feels all right. Boom, off you go. Like next thing you know, you've done 10K at, you know, like in 30 minutes, and you're like, fucking. The next day you're in absolute bits, and you've got to spar 10 rounds, or you've got a peak phase of a strength training program. So, it's a battle.
Yeah.
But the guys, like I say, the guys that I work with, the coaches are knowledgeable and stuff like that. So it's not just me saying it, it's their coaches repeating the stuff, or the coaches saying it and me agreeing with them saying, yeah, I think he's right. You should take this day off, or you should not do that this week and take some stuff out. So
yeah, that's interesting because I say a question that comes to mind is, do you train sort of fighters at different weights in different ways, or is that overthinking things as well?
So yeah, the fundamental principles behind the training stay the same.
Yeah.
I do train more around the individual preferences of fighters and the genetic makeup of fighters.
Right.
Like, if I take Alois Jr., for example, he's a genetic freak.
Yeah.
He's built like an absolute bodybuilder.
And that's natural, is it? Just woke up like that?
Well, like I say, I was up in Glasgow. Shout out to Alois Senior, his old man. Like, his old man's like the same age as me. In his mid-40s, he's an absolute unit.
Is he? Yeah.
Like shredded tank of a guy. So he's got genetics through the family, the run in the family. So how I'll train him might be slightly different to someone who I want to put a bit more muscle on. Like with Alois, we might have more of a power focus because we've already got the prerequisite muscle and strength to produce force. We just focus more on, we don't lift as heavy with Alois because he's already got that genetic, natural gorilla strength. So I don't need to build much more of that strength. I'm just working on maybe expressing that strength a little bit faster. So we do a little bit more of a power focus with Alois. With, you know, Jamie TKV, my heavyweight, where he's in there with monsters, like then we go heavier on the strength training. We try and max out on the strength training as much as we can, get him as strong as we possibly can, and make sure that his energy system's on point. You know, and then we've got guys that are in the middle of that, they're in between, that we try and balance between the strength and power and conditioning. Some guys need to work more on their energy system stuff, so we'll make that a focus. So like some people have natural gifts and talents that I don't need to go and train that because they've already got it.
Yeah.
So then the focus shifts slightly. The fundamental principles underpinning the program and all is the same, but where we spend most of our time and attention will differ from fighter to fighter, depending on their genetic makeup, you know, what they like enjoy doing. What they enjoy doing. If they enjoy one type of training which is beneficial, then we'll have a focus, or we'll put that in a place where if they've done something they really don't like, then we'll go straight into something they do like.
Right.
Because it kind of like gives them a little bit of extra bump. Like, oh look, when this is done, you've got this. So like, oh, all right, cool, I can get this done. Like, bang. You know, so it's like working with, you know, their personalities as well. Working with personalities, because some people you have to, you know, coax more into doing certain things because they're a bit resistant to it. Other people you have to pull, like we're going to do a little bit less of that because you go crazy on that.
Yeah, right.
They give maximum effort into some things they really, really enjoy doing. We don't need to do as much of it because the intent with which they do it is so full on. Like, well, right, we're good, right, move on. Like, you know, so personalities will dictate
It's interesting that because I've heard a lot of that spoken. You know who John Danaher is?
Yeah, I know John Danaher.
So like he spoke about how like your personality should dictate your fight style. Like if you're naturally aggressive and whatnot, if you're naturally the fun guy, whatever. And I think there's a lot to that in there. Do you know what I mean? Well, you touched on it there.
Yeah, personality will dictate how I train certain people. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Because you know, no two people are the same. No. If you just train everyone the same, you're not going to get the most out of them. Yeah. So it's my job to sort of over the course of weeks and months of, you know, programming their training, actually delivering the training and adapting their training programs camp to camp. We try and find a formula that works best for that. I actually think that that's probably one of my best attributes is connecting with my fighters on a personal level, understanding what makes them tick, understanding what they like and don't like doing. That's not to say the stuff they don't like doing we don't do. We absolutely do it, but the amount of it we do and where we put it in the program might be a slightly different person to person. So yeah, personalities do play a part in how we train. When the boys train together, that's fun. Oh my God, it's brilliant.
The boys are in.
I won't always train them one-to-one. Sometimes I train 2 of them or sometimes 3 of them at a time.
That's interesting.
Brilliant.
That's interesting.
Yeah, they're the best sessions.
Obviously, no one wants to lose. No one wants to be the second place.
Mate, the mentality of these guys is so elite in terms of the competitor in them that they will compete at stretching in the warm-up.
Really? Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah. They'll compete with everything. Sometimes that actually can be detrimental in the groups I've taken out, like the curve running. We'll do like tempo runs on the curve, and I'll be like, right, boys, give me 80%.
Yeah, they're like, thanks, coach. Sharp.
Yeah, cool. Like turn into like Usain Bolt for 15 seconds. So some things like that, I'll take out when there's groups of them because it ends up being borderline dangerous because they push so hard with things like that. Like you're asking for an injury. So we've learnt through experiences with that some exercises will do like. When they compete with each other, it gets a bit much. So when there's 2 or 3 of them, I'll take that out.
Is that weight governed as well? You try and pair people that are of a similar weight so they can actually compete.
We do I'll you know, Jamie and Alois will train a lot together. But Chris Congo will train him with those who's like now at Super World.
Is he under you, is he, Chris?
Yeah, he's under Chris Congo.
I sparred with him back in the day at Lynn and Elsfield. He used to come to Elsfield
that was his amateur club. So Chris Congo's been with me 2.5 years. Yeah. So after he lost the British title Esserman fight, the British title fight to Esserman, then he come on board with me. He's fucking been absolutely brilliant. That's cool. Little bit of a bump in the road with the last fight, but we identified he was obviously cutting down to welterweight. He's a massive welterweight.
What is he? He's got to be 6'1", hasn't he?
Oh, he's 6'1", yeah, he's 6'1". He's a huge welterweight, mate. He's huge. And if you see the pictures, I posted on my Instagram of him, like literally he looked like a Greek god.
Oh, mate, you could
it was unbelievable. It was unbelievable. Unbelievable shape, but that's the thing with weight cutting. Yeah. You don't know when it's going to get you.
Right. And how old is he now, Chris?
He's 31.
Right. So
32.
He's still young.
Yeah.
Still young,
Still got a lot of fights left in him. Like we're going to have a run at Super Welter. So he decided to leave welterweight in the rear view, move on to Super Welter.
What's that? 69.5, is it?
69.9.
Oh, is it
maximum?
Yeah. 154 pounds.
Yeah. 154. Yeah. So he's moving up to 154. We've got some real big fights coming up for Chris at 154, but he'll mix it with the big boys.
Oh yeah.
And vice versa. Like from an energy system perspective, Jamie TKV can run with the lighter guys, can push a pace with those guys.
That's a good way to do it though, isn't it? Like to chase him. Do you know what I mean?
Mate, absolutely. So yeah, the guys will mix in together, depending on what they've got coming up. Sometimes we'll train them on their own just because the focus, like we want them to focus on certain things and stuff, but you know, in between camps when they're doing stuff and we get them all, we train together, that's great fun.
And does it work like, obviously you're dealing with grown men, we're not talking about 12-year-olds in an amateur club here. Are they very willing to just go, yeah, whatever you say, coach? They are.
100%, mate. Yeah, 100%.
Makes things easy.
None of them ever really question anything like, I always make sure that they know why we're doing it, what we're doing, why we're doing it.
Because I told you to.
How it fits, do the same as I do. How it fits into the programming on the bigger structure. Some of the guys, you know, are interested in that. Why are we doing it? Where does it fit into the bigger picture? So I make sure the guys always know why we're doing it. But guys that have worked with me for multiple camps now, they already know. They already know the structure of the training, and if I say to do it, they do it.
Yeah. And it seems like you're one of them coaches as well that, like, when someone comes on board with you, they seem to stick with you as well.
I don't really lose people. Like, I don't really lose people. I'm one of those coaches that's constantly improving in my education. I don't think like I'm the finished article. So I'm constantly researching, I'm constantly updating my training, I'm constantly looking at training courses to go and do and online stuff that I can work on to improve myself as a coach. You know, I speak to high level S&C coaches in combat and outside of combat, so in field sports, football. I've got some real high level S&C coaches that I speak to that are in football still. So I'm constantly trying to improve my game. So I'm always trying to bring something a little bit different, and I think my guys appreciate that. They know that we know that what works really well, and then the other stuff we'll try and just trial and error, see what works, and play around with stuff. So I'm not stuck in my ways. Oh, this is the only way to do it. I'm open to science moving on, technology moving on, and adapting training to go along with what the latest science tells us. So I'm not, one size fits all. I'm not stuck in my ways in terms of how we train. I'm open to new ideas, and I'm constantly seeking new ways to better myself and better the performance and the outcomes for my fighters. So I take that really seriously, mate. Like, that's close to my heart. How these guys do, like, they invest so much in their training. They invest so much. They sacrifice so much in their lives to be the best that they can be. No way am I turning up 50%. No way am I turning up with training that's 10 years old. Yeah. So I'm making sure that I am the best I can be so that they can be the best they can be.
That's brilliant, isn't it? And I think
it really is.
Such
really
a gold
means a lot to me.
Fucking nugget, isn't it, for fighters to have that? Because even today, you're going, and not at the top level necessarily, but we've all been in gyms recently where you go in there and there's a geezer in the corner who's got a bit of a belly on and kind of goes, all right, push-ups, and does not give a fuck. And like some of the fighters, we're not mentioning names obviously, or gyms, but like they're at good level, man. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Well, and it's like they could be at top level if they didn't.
I mean, the amateur boxing club here that's run by John Villan, the Punch Out Boxing Academy, they just had a team of guys go over to Portimao, to Portugal, to the Portimao Box Cup. Like, I trained those guys, S&C, like I did 2 group S&C sessions for them every weekend for like 12 weeks leading up to that fight, and they were bought in 100%. The juniors, the seniors in the amateur club. I did all S&C with them, energy system work, plus all the technical work they did in the boxing gym, and they went out and performed. I think they took 5 belts out there. Yo. They got in 6 finals.
I mean,
like, it's big. It's big.
And listen, in this more than anything, results speak for themselves, don't they? Because it don't matter what you're doing in it. Like, it's got to translate in it. Do you know
absolutely.
What I mean?
So the K1 guys and the Thai boxing guys as well, Double K Gym, like Marlon and Jamie McGuigan. Marlon Gillett and Jamie McGuigan, who are both train S&C as well. I train Marlon's S&C. He's the Muay Thai Grand Prix boxing light heavyweight international champion. So I train him as well.
Did he just have a boxing match recently?
He did have a boxing match. He boxed last Saturday.
Yeah, because I had his opponent on. Shout out Emmanuel, City Fight Gym. He was on the podcast about 2 weeks before the fight. I was quite aware of that. Small world.
Small world. Yeah. So Marlon
won as well, didn't he?
Yeah, Marlon won. Yeah, unanimous decision. So I train those guys as well. They're kickboxers, they're brought into their S&C, and I do doing some group stuff with the kickboxers as well. So, it's not just not just the top level pros that I train. I'm doing amateur, like grassroots stuff as well.
A proper passion for it.
I find that just as rewarding, mate. Yeah. The groups that I did for the Box Cup in Portimao, I enjoyed it so much. Like,
is that right?
Such good fun, mate. Such good fun.
Well, some of them boys coming through when they're young and amateurs. I mean, not that it's stressful. If you're making money and stuff, it's a different kettle of fish, isn't it? But like struggling pros, like historically, boxing's been that game, innit? Do you know
Absolutely,
what I mean?
Mate.
These guys that you're training in the amateur going out for box cups, they're paying to do it, basically, aren't they? Do you know what I mean? So they love it. So if they're getting results, I mean, fuck me.
It's big, yeah. So I'm doing stuff right from the bottom right to the top. Yeah. Like I say, my next outing is Madison Square Garden with Ellie Scottney.
Oh, it's not a bad one, is
Ellie 11th for July on Netflix. Ellie Scottney's defending her WBO, IBF, IBO world titles, her Ring Magazine title, and she's fighting for the WBC world title against a tough American girl, the WBC reigning champion. So she's trying to unify another belt on her way to undisputed at super bantamweight. Nice. So I'll be out there with her at Madison Square Garden with Shane and his team, getting that. So like I say, I'm from the bottom level to the top.
And that's 11th of July, you said?
11th of July.
This will be at 10th of July.
11th of July on Netflix.
So tomorrow, when you're watching this.
Ellie Scotney defending her world titles and looking to add the WBC world title to her list. Gosh. So I'll be out there going out for that. Nice. So I'm looking forward to that. Then I've got Alois Jr.'s the mandatory for the cruiserweight title. He's trying to get Vidal Riley in. Vidal Riley seems a little bit reluctant. I can't imagine why. And then I've got Jamie TKV's mandatory for the British title, the rematch with Adelaide. Adelaide's now taken a fight in Saudi Arabia, so it's going to have to vacate that British title. So there's a couple of big names on the horizon for that British title, for Jamie fighting for that. So he's mandatory for that. It's probably going to be out in September. Chris Congo making his 154 debut. We've got potentially something big lined up for that. So, you know, there's a lot going on over the next coming weeks.
That's interesting.
That I'll be out involved in. So
nice,
yeah,
mate.
It should be good fun.
Well, mate, listen, this has been brilliant. I really appreciate it.
Really enjoyed the time. Thank you very much. Great to chat with you. And,
before we go, I'll ask you an important question. I don't know if you've seen any of these, but there is a right answer to this one. Which football team do you support?
So I actually have got roots with Millwall. So my old man used to own a newsagents up near the old den at Coldblow Lane. Okay. So he was a big Millwall fan, so that filtered down to me. So yeah.
Don't like trophies, no.
Not a fan of silverware. Millwall fan.
Bosh, nice one. Correct answer is Chelsea, but never mind. We'll get it right next time.
The correct answer is never Chelsea.
I always finish with a fist up like this, mate. Squeeze the neck. Boom!
Squeeze the neck, baby.